Here we are on our last Advent devotional for 2020. I cannot believe there's only a couple more days till Christmas. And a question that we often hear at this time of year is, are you ready? Are you ready for Christmas? Have you done the stuff that you need to do to feel less stressed about the fact that Christmas is coming, whether you are ready or not? My prayer is that through Advent, we've seen that Christmas came for people who couldn't possibly do enough to get ready. And maybe in the oddness and loss of this COVID Christmas, we will hear a whisper of grace because maybe this year, with doing less to prepare for Christmas, buying less because we have less money to buy stuff with, shopping less because we don't want to be out and about in the crowds like we have been other years, or baking less because we don't have as many people coming to eat our food. Maybe in this doing less, the message of Christmas will come through a little more clearly. That Christmas isn't about doing, it is about resting in what has already been done. So for one last time this year, let's pause. Let's take a break from those lists of what we need to do and sit back one more time to hear the story of Christmas. Here's a riddle for you. What has 15 actors, 4 settings, 2 writers, and 1 plot? 634 Hallmark movies. Isn't that kind of true? Isn't it like you've seen one and you've seen them all? And yet people keep watching them. And I mean, we know that this is true, otherwise Hallmark wouldn't keep making them. If you have never succumbed, basically they're stories about finding true love at Christmas. Often one of the characters is down and out, because of life circumstances or poor choices that, have landed them in a desperate situation. And then through remarkable happenstance, they meet the one. In a shocking number of movies, the down and out one is a lady who is rescued by a prince. And I say shocking because who knew there were so many princes wandering around the world at large, at Christmas markets or diners or Christmas tree lots. And even though this prince is from an obscure country, he's wealthy, he's powerful, he's connected, and he has the ability to completely turn this lady's life around. And if at this point you're wondering why a prince would fall for someone who's down and out, well, it's because she's beautiful, always. And then she's some captivating combination of spunky yet vulnerable, or sweet yet strong, or generous despite being totally impoverished. And essentially, he falls for her because he can't help himself. Despite having the money, the power, the connections, she has something that he needs, something that he wants. She is the one that's going to bring the warmth of love into his life. And so why do we watch these highly predictable and, dare I even say, cheesy movies? Maybe it's because buried deep inside of us, in a place we may not always acknowledge, we long for Prince Charming to ride in and save us. Someone who will give us what we can't get on our own. Someone who will love us with the truest of loves, who will never leave us, always protect us, always be able to provide for us. Someone who can make our wishes come true. There is an acorn seed inside of each of us that longs for true love. And I cannot help but think, man, we long for Jesus. Well, there's a reason that the gospel is called good news, and that the story of Christmas is what kicks off these good tidings of great joy, because at its heart, the story of Christmas is a love story. It's the story of love coming down from the throne room of heaven with the birth of its prince, the prince who is born to save us and take us as his bride, the prince who promises himself and all that relationship with him entails to anyone who believes in him and who accepts him. It's the story of true love that really does end with happily ever after. And as I thought about true love this week, I came to believe that for us to understand the love part, we have to understand the true part as well. And so I thought, well, we've got to do one of my favorite things. We need to define the word true and look at its etymology, look at its roots to help us understand the concept of love. And so the dictionary defines true as being in accordance with fact or reality, being genuine, accurate or exact, loyal, faithful, honest, without variation, unchanging. Don't those words paint a picture of true love? In your experience, do they paint a picture of the people that you associate with love? Or does thinking about true love, does it bring up hard memories and deep hurts because it didn't end up looking anything like those words for you? Have you had experiences that you thought might be, hoped would be true love, but you ended up hurt and hard and cynical and jaded? Unfortunately, we live in a world marked by sin. We are people marked by sin, living among other people marked and scarred by sin. And unfortunately, what we tend to do is attach feelings and actions of love to the object or to the subject, to the person being loved, instead of anchoring them in the one who is expressing or declaring the love. And this turns a love story into a Hallmark movie. It gives us a prince who falls in love with a woman because she's beautiful, funny, sweet, spunky, smart, whatever it is, because he just can't help himself. She might not have any material means, but he has enough for both of them. She has something else that's desirable and that fills a need in him. And then we watch wistfully, wishing, man, if we were just that amazing, we might be able to attract that kind of prince. We watch and then we feel this burden of either work or despair. Work because, well, now we have a list that we gotta knock off to up our chances of attracting a prince like this. Or despair because we have tackled that list more times than we can count. And either we've never managed to accomplish it, or we have and we still just did not land the prince. Friends, the good news of the gospel is that we have a better prince than any Hallmark movie could ever give us. We have a prince whose love for us isn't rooted in us, it's anchored in him. The Bible, it shows us a God who doesn't need us because before he made us, before he made anything that exists, he already had everything that he could possibly need or desire within himself. There isn't a single thing that God made that makes him more complete or more happy. Nothing. He already enjoyed perfect love and fulfilling relationship within the Trinity before time even existed. There's nothing we can do, not in the least, to top that up even a tiny bit. He does not need our beauty, our spunk, our sweetness, or our generosity because he is the God who has all. And he is the God who sees all. He sees into the darkest corners of our lives. He knows our deepest secret. He knows our thoughts. He knows our motivation. He has seen things that aren't beautiful. In fact, they're ugly. He has seen cowardice instead of spunkiness. He has seen bitterness instead of sweetness. And he has seen stinginess rather than generosity. And this might sound like bad news, but it is really the best news. Because what it means is that we are fully known. And being fully known, we are still fully loved. There isn't enough makeup in the world to cover what we do not want to be seen, but we don't need any of it because he invites us to come to him without it. The love of our prince, the love he has for us, it isn't something that he feels, it's who he is. He is true. He is love. That's his nature. And because God is pure and whole and undivided, his nature and his actions, they can't be separated, and so they'll never be changed. We can know and we can trust that his love is never going to be increased or decreased by anything in us. It's going to remain steadfast and faithful because he is an unchanging God. We looked at the definition of the word true, but we haven't yet seen the etymology of the word. We haven't looked at its root, where it comes from, and how it's connected to similar words. And the root of the word true is connected to words like steadfast and loyal, faithful, trustworthy, honest, truce, friendship, keeping promises, confidence, and betrothal. All of those words share the same root system as the word tree. In fact, the earliest expressions of truth were expressed in association with trees. Trees, they're upright. Typically, they're straight, they're solid, they're real. They are as reliable and steadfast to us today as they were to people thousands of years ago. And that's why people have coined expressions like solid as trees, true as trees. Expressions like the uprightness of an oak tree, the steadiness of a silver birch, the fidelity of an orchard bearing fruit year after year. In the love story that the Bible tells us, we see the love of God shown to us most clearly on a tree. On the cross, our Prince demonstrated faithful and steadfast love in that it was the ugliness of our sin and our rebellion that put him there to suffer and die. And yet, he loved us still, even unto death. John, the beloved disciple, he says in 1 John 4, verses 9 and 10, he says, "This is how God showed his love among us. He sent his one and his only Son into the world that we might live through him." That's the story of Christmas. This is love. Not that we loved God, but that he loved us. And he sent his Son as an atoning sacrifice for our sins. We can trust the truth of God's love because it is true. He is true. We love him because he loved us first, with a love that we do not need to earn. It's a love that's given to us freely as a gift. Lasting hope and peace and joy have to be anchored in love. Not our love, not our lovability, but the true love that God has for us. As we close our Advent devotionals, we're going to circle back to the beginning. At the beginning, we looked at Advent being this reminder that we wait between two comings. The first coming, which is when Christ came born as a baby at Christmas. The second coming is the one for which we still wait. There is an implication in the waiting. The question we often ask at Christmas, "Are you ready?" It's an important one. There was nothing that we could do to get ready for the first coming. He simply came to us in our darkness and our death to shine the light of life. But there is something that we have to do to get ready for the second coming. The only way that we can be ready for Jesus' return is to respond to him in faith. The only work that we can do, the only work that we must do, is to believe that he is who he says that he is, and then to accept the invitation of himself that he offers us. And this invitation, it's all-encompassing. It's going to completely change our lives and our stories from those who were down and out to people who are now children of the King. And being a child of the King, that changes everything. I want to wish you a very Merry Christmas. And with it, my prayer is that you will know sure hope, unshakable peace, and lasting joy found through Jesus and the story of true love that we find in the story of Christmas. Merry Christmas.